Welcome back to SEO Conspiracy.com with my dear friend Judith Lewis. Bonjour, Judith.
Bonjour.
How is everything today?
So far, so good. I always set the bar very low, and I'm alive, so it must be a good day.
I love she always has like those sentences that hit you. I cannot hate you for that because you can say in one sentence what's going to take me one whole paragraph or 2,000 words. So
Comes
lovely,
with being
lovely.
old.
And we gonna start to learn who she is, what she does, where does she come from, and so on. Then, of course, we're gonna move on to her favorite pet peeves about search and SEO in general, or no, SEO and search in general. And then I wanted to talk about the business of SEO because Judith, I think, is a prime example on how to go about it. When a good SEO is the spot is not where everybody goes, but just right next to the spot. That's a very good example. And then we'll see where it goes. And maybe we'll talk about also how to do SEO. But first, we're going to focus on how to become a great SEO. A SEO diva like her. Can you tell me the famous magic trick? Because she goes back to the black hat days of white font on white page.
I miss those days. That was so much fun. And HTML comments. I mean, come on. They were an underutilized option for spamming.
What year was that?
Hmm?
What year? Like the 90s
Oh
or
my
the 2000s?
Let's see. So HTML comments would have been early
Was it Google?
2000s.
That was already Google.
You've got Google in 1999, but Google wasn't a big thing. So
Yeah, no, it
Dogpile
was
is
like
what really.
it was like 2000, maybe Google that started
Yeah,
to
because when you
2002.
used a meta search engine, because they all sucked, right? So you used a meta search engine that showed you all the different search results in all the different search engines. And Google came forward and sort of stood out from the rest because when it came up in the meta search engine, it showed you what was actually on the page rather than what was in DMOZ, the Open Directory project, or what was hidden on the page. So it showed you what was actually on the page. And usually it was just crap. So you could easily use that search engine to filter out the crappy search results, which is one of the reasons why it became so popular. Obviously, that plus the offline marketing they did, people forget about this, but there was a lot of offline marketing that they did. So a combination of the two things, and you bring that all together, and you get a global juggernaut like you have now.
What was your favorite trick back in the days? Google Black Hat SEO from the early days.
Oh God, links for sure. Buying shitty links and oh, sorry, I swore. Buying
You can swear. You can swear.
inexpensive
It's not for
links.
kids.
Yeah, don't do this at home, kids. It doesn't work anymore. I did like the white on white background stuff at the bottom of the page, so small font, bottom of the page. But I used to make it relevant so that if it was exposed through search engines, then it still made sense. I also like to do HTML comments. It wasn't as strong a signal as the content on page, but it still worked. So HTML comments I felt was a really underutilized one because you could really expand the keywords you ranked for. And links, really shitty links that point back to the website worked for a long, long time.
That was even the content was not that important. It was title, tag, and links.
Yeah,
The content
absolutely.
part, little by little. Now today, the block of content matters a lot. But back in the days, it wasn't even in maybe my top 5 ranking
Yeah.
factors. Content, yeah, whatever is there, but title, tag, and links with anchor
Yep.
text.
Yes. Exact match anchor text to the keyword you want to rank for. Absolutely.
There was no, I don't know what you think about it, but there was no latitude. The anchor text needed to be exactly, precisely what you wanted to rank for.
Yeah, and if you varied, then you wouldn't rank for the right keyword. So
Mm.
you had to make it pretty precise. It wasn't until about, what, 2005, we started to get a little bit more fuzzy logic. And then by the time we're hitting 2007, they're already caning the bad links, and then you get into interflora and things like that, and that kind of spammy link building just goes completely away.
And then Panda, Penguin,
Yeah.
we killed the game. I love when after Penguin, there were no links made for the entire summer. I mean, 3-4 months, not one link was made on the entire internet as far as the digital marketing world. Everything froze. But
You were all busy cleaning up the bad links.
Then tell me, please, this magic trick, because you started to speak in conferences, you started to get a name for yourself, but you had this black hat background kind of behind you. So what was your magic trick?
It was a literal magic trick. So when I moved over to publishing and went a little bit more white hat, because I was working for an actual company rather than just spamming shit on the web to sell. Because literally my background in spamming emails and spamming the internet is from selling stuff, and it was working very well. As it stopped working as easily and as well, then I got a job doing the same stuff that I was doing, only properly, for a publisher. And when I got there, the very first thing that I participated in was a conference. I didn't speak, other people spoke. And the guys who spoke at that conference lied to the audience. And I said to my manager, they're wrong on this point, this point, this point, and that's a lie. I said, let me do it next time. If I get a good score, then keep me on. If I don't, then you still got these guys that you can fall back on. I was the highest rated speaker, but that was because I knew what I was doing.
Yeah, we'll talk about the fakers and the people who pretend in a while. But how did you, let's go more into that. I want you to explain how you invented the chocolate blog DIVA to hide or to
cover my tracks.
To cover your tracks, yeah.
Yeah, literally, it was a magician's trick. So when I first started to speak at conferences and come out of the closet, so to speak, I knew I had a really, really wide footprint. So wide, it's bigger than Sasquatch or, Tyrannosaurus Rex. It was a huge footprint. And if you could trace it back to me, then it was going to be a big problem, because not only had I done email spam, but also internet spam. So in order to distract people, because the whole speaking thing happened faster than I expected. I was brand new in the job. They didn't know who I was, let alone what I was capable of doing. So the back footprint, it was huge. So what I did is I invented this passion. Now, I do like chocolate, but I was not that passionate or knowledgeable about chocolate when I did this, but I had to figure out something to distract. So, as I'm cleaning up everything from behind, you're looking at one hand while the other hand is cleaning everything up. So I used a magician's trick, which was, look at me, look at the chocolate, I'm into chocolate, oh my god, it's chocolate, 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 while all of my personas and all of the things that linked to my old IP and things like that were all cleaned up. And I had a blue book of personas, of characters that I had created in order to spam the internet. I was spamming forums, I was spamming lists, I was spamming everything you could possibly think of with these personas, all of them different, using different IPs, but it was still a pretty easily traceable footprint. So I just changed it up a bit and made it less connected to me, slightly less spammy. Some of that stuff is still out there. And cleaned it up so that as people looked in and got interested in me, they looked into the chocolate side, not the spammy side. And I actually had a theme, which is another footprint issue, a theme that all of my named personas followed. So if you figured out 2 or 3 personas were me, then you'd bust the whole network, because you could figure out which ones were me based on this scheme of how to name the personas. They all had different dates of birth, ages, and things like that, but the names all had a particular they all went through a particular, I'll tell you, because it doesn't matter now, they're all cleaned up. I had a pack of cards that were like, I don't know, tree druid tree cards or something, and they
Hmm.
had names like Strafe is a blackthorn and things like that. So I literally took those and mythological names. So the first name was mythological, the last name was tree, and those
Okay.
two things together, those were the personas. But they're all thankfully gone now.
Yes, but oh, the you are brave enough to admit and to say, okay, this is where I'm come from, and you do speak openly about this magic trick that you did. But the funny thing is, you did become a real like chocolate influencer for real.
No, that was the crazy part. I did such a good job of saying, "Oh, look, chocolate," that people believed me. And then I got educated anyway because any good spammer knows that if you're knowledgeable and educated about your topic, then you're a more effective spammer. So, I just followed the same technique that I was using for spamming in order to do this chocolate thing and educated myself about it. I did have relatives who were food critics, so I did have a slight cheat. But the chocolate knowledge just came with time. I studied, I researched, I tasted, I understood, and I kept up with it because people expected it after a while. And so I just kept rolling with it. And now I judge international chocolate awards and I'm a chocolate influencer.
How much did that help you to have this food critic relative?
A little bit in
Mm.
introductions. So after I proved that I actually had knowledge of tasting, then he trusted me enough to make introductions to people that he knew, like Denis Agabo in Paris, who had, before it burned down, the oldest chocolate shop in Paris. It was near the famous Moulin Rouge red windmill that still exists today in Paris, as well as Askinoisie chocolate in the States, who is one of my all-time favorite based on taste and based on ethics.
Mm.
And so those types of introductions would not have happened otherwise, but most of it was my own work, my own research, and my own efforts.
My sentence is always the greatest lies are always the closest to the truth. That's
Yes.
paraphrasing what you just said about being a good spammer. If you're a
Yeah.
guy and you pretend to be a woman, it's very possible. If you're freelance and you pretend to be an agency, it's all good. It works.
Yep.
It just has strong limitations. It's gonna blow up in your face. The greatest lies need to be the closest from the truth as possible. That's how spies do
Yeah.
it. Actually, when they invent the persona, they don't try to invent something from scratch. They rely on
Mm.
something concrete and real. Otherwise, they get caught in the lie and they're gonna finish in the river with a with a brick attached to their ankles.
It's like the Big Bang Theory. You've got the character that, oh, I can't remember his name now, but it's not Leonard, it's Leonard's roommate. And he always makes these convoluted, difficult scenarios when the best lie is the one closest to the truth. And I think back in the 80s, when I was first online and discovering the fact that men pretended to be women, I learned this trick where they were basically themselves, but pretended to be a female version of
Mhm.
themselves. So they were genuine and they were honest and truthful. They were just that in a female shell.
Sure.
And that was the easiest thing for them to mimic and pretend to be somebody that they weren't. And the number of poor people who fell in love as a result was sad. But it was the 80s, and we did a lot of experimentation in the 80s.
What about how you came into search and SEO in particular? What tell me more about this journey, because the spammy SEO and from the early days, the fun part, the adventure, and the chocolate influencer, that's one thing. But your path, your journey as one of the most thought after SEO speaker, or even we'll talk about the awards also as well. But yeah, you are definitely a big part of the industry. What was your journey to achieve that?
Probably programming at the beginning, and that's how I got online in the 1980s. So 1985, when I was 15, yes, I am that old, I applied to go to a programming course. I had no idea at the time that my mother had been a programmer. I didn't find that out until maybe 3 or 4 years ago when she finally admitted it. For some reason, she never decided to disclose that. But in 1985, I decided to go into programming. It was difficult. My mother had to argue with my female programming teacher to let me in, but I learned Pascal and I learned BASIC and I learned a lot of the mechanisms of how to program programs. And I loved it. I loved that instant feedback of you program something and it does something. So I absolutely adored that. And I kept up with it through school informally. So once I'd completed the course, I kept doing it because I was passionate about just manipulating things on a computer. And don't even think that, because you know what goes on besides this and the manipulation side of things. But I kept up with the digital side of things. My dad brought home computers from the office. He enabled me to continue being online, going on bulletin board systems, on all sorts of forums and things like that. And so I kept with it till university. At university, I did my thesis on something called social interactions via live online systems. So 1994, kids, I wrote my thesis at university on social media. So yeah, beat that.
Yes. Mine was on I did a political science BA, and my thesis was America is not a democracy, it's a plutocracy. That was,
so no news there either.
yes, but nothing very useful. And if I did like a business major, I could have stayed forever. It's just if you study in the US, you have to work within the field of your study.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that. That's why they
asked you to leave. So
they asked me to leave
programming, and then what else? So path to being an SEO. So programming, so a basis of programming, degree in psychology, and that's, social media. And then when I left, I didn't immediately move to the UK, but when I moved to the UK, I didn't have a job right away. So as any good person would, I started my own business. I sold stuff online. And what I specialized in was importing stuff from Canada and the US to sell in the UK, which I ended up shipping back to the US. But that was just a testament to how well I'd learned SEO. So in 1996, I found myself with an online shop. And before there were transactions on the web, we had to get people to fill out paper forms. So we uploaded a paper form. They printed it off on their computer. They filled it in by hand and mailed it in with a check. And that's how I started in SEO, was selling stuff online. And I just stuck with it. I did get an intermediary job, like to keep things going, when I finally did get a job in supporting mail servers, not males who serve people, which would have been fun, but more email servers. And that's how I got so intimate with TCP/IP and DNS and bind, which they both enjoyed deeply. And that's why I know so much about the internet. It's why I know so much about psychology, and it's why I know so much about programming. I built my own websites from scratch in Notepad. So that's why I have such a deep understanding of SEO. And I tested everything in the 90s, late 90s, I should say, late 90s, 96, 97, 98. You changed your website a bit and you changed your rankings. And there's just not that ability now. But if you had that engineering mindset, that's what you did. You systematically changed and you saw what worked. And that's the basis and the foundation for the knowledge that I then gained. And I kept reading. I read Bill Slosky's SEO by the Sea for his patents, who I know you've interviewed. I read a little bit of Moz when it came around, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. But I also used the best tool in your toolkit, which is your brain, to filter out the bad.
You have a profile that's very precious in this industry because you do have the technical background, but you do also how to speak, how to write. With my broken English, I can't even compete with you, but even native English-speaking people, you know how to explain something, which is, and you know how to write something, and you know how to demonstrate something, you know how to argue something, which is way more powerful than if you have one profile, technical, link. You know everything, and you've done everything, which is, I didn't go as far as you, as far as the dev part, but I did touch a little bit on everything. I think it's really a superpower compared to those who are just into, okay, I know logs, I know how to analyze logs, but I don't know anything else. Yeah, because you know content marketing, you know link building, you know you know black hat, you know. We'll talk about your view on white hat, white versus black. What's
The
next?
reason I don't know. I was going to say the reason I think I can express myself well is possibly because my mother used to make me write lines when I expressed myself less than optimally. But also my father's a lawyer and he wanted me to be a lawyer. So my erudition was refined from a very young age. And he is still to this day bitter that I am not a lawyer and am a digital marketer when my sister is an engineer and my little brother is a mathematician.
Well, I'm not your dad, but I'm really bothered by the fact that you don't have a podcast with your voice, your skills. What are you doing not having your own? What are you doing going on other people's channel? Where's yours?
Where is my channel? Well, what I want to do is get one of those, what is it, ASR mics and just go, hi, hi, have you heard the SEO word?
It's a gift to have a voice like yours and to be, how did you say it? Not literate, but the way you express yourself. You use a word. You use words that are not even in Wikipedia. Like, I mean, come on.
Erudition.
Erudition.
It's so that you make a judge immediately pay you respect and pay attention to you because they see that you're using language that is more advanced than the average. And by doing that, you immediately force someone like a judge to recognize your education and level and skill. Whereas if I communicate normally with people, I try not to use words like erudition and anti-disestablishmentarianism because they're difficult words that are very complex and not many people know what they mean.
Yeah, it's like when I speak with my sysadmin, he uses a language that yeah, like I say, it's not in Wikipedia. No,
Yeah.
but with a voice like yours, with the knowledge you have, with the way you explain things, you got to do this thing.
Maybe I will one day. I was on the Marketing Scoop podcast with SEM Rush for a while.
That's not
So
yours.
maybe I'll have to do
That's
it.
not yours.
Yeah. No, it's not mine. There are lots of things out there that have me on them that aren't mine.
Exactly. That's one way to go about it. It's definitely a good strategy. Even Christine, who I had a couple of weeks, yeah, that's a whole strategy, and she did well. You've been doing it well too, but you need to have your thing. Okay, let's move on to the next topic. Well, where is the best way? Where is the best place, and what's the best way if I want to engage with you?
Where is the best place and what is the best way? Well, the best place, I suppose, is I have a
Not
website.
the bedroom.
No, it would be the dungeon more than the bedroom. But that aside, the website decabit.com is where I have a small website dedicated to what I do, which doesn't get updated because I'm busy doing what I do. You can also chat with me at a conference. I give away a lot for free at conferences because I enjoy doing what I do, or almost 25 years in the business and I would be dead. So I do a lot for free at conferences, but if you want to get me to do something in depth and up close and personal, the best way is to email me.
I'm going to give you a tip, guys. Don't go online right after she spoke, because there's a line, and that's very difficult for a speaker to give high value during that time. Wait until she's got a couple of drinks. Wait until later. Be patient. And you're going to have your time a little bit later. That's where it all comes down. Wait until she's relaxed. She's got a couple of drinks. She's got a big smile. Then you can engage with Judith. And she's going to give you a lot of value. That's my growth hacking tip of the day to get your moment with her. Isn't that right? Am I?
It's true. Yeah. After you speak, you have
Yeah.
a very short window
Mm.
to speak with someone, and then you have to get out of there because the next speaker's coming on. You've got to get somewhere because you've got to go to the green room to debrief, or you have to do this or that. Or I'm often in heels and I want to get out of my heels.
And
But
you got
if
that rush
you,
too, where you
yeah,
also have the big rush that you need to a little bit come down off. So yeah, it's.
yeah.
I understand people who go on uh, to try to have a little conversation, but after the talk is definitely not the best time. Uh,
And if you've
what
ever seen me talk, I'm also breathless because I've been running around the stage, jumping up and down.
Yeah, it's a whole show. So you are definitely one of those speakers who not only do number one, open file. Number two, click here. Number three, no, it's a whole show. You give. Tell me if I'm wrong, but it seems like you try to give a couple, two, three main tips to try to get people to think for themselves instead of trying to lay down the whole tutorial, the whole checklist. So even if
Yeah.
it's a checklist, the main thing is trying to push people to how much can you give anyway in a few minutes. It's
Yeah.
difficult.
It's very true. I recently I pitched a successful talk for a conference that went online, and they wanted me to change the talk from seven digital marketing hacks that any business can use to grow their strategy
Okay.
to seven SEO hacks that any business can use to grow their business. And I said, well, if I'd done the digital strategy hacks, it would have been worth thousands had they followed it. But instead, we can do the SEO and I'll still make the thousands.
Mm.
Because if you don't start with strategy, you're doomed to fail. So there are still a lot of people out there who will just do the seven easy tips for doing whatever. But I tend to think broader and I like to get people to think more broadly. So I like them to walk away thinking about the bigger picture rather than the small picture and to inspire them because I'm inspired. It comes across in my talk because I get excited and impassioned
Mm-mm-mm.
with what I'm transmitting to them, and they can see my enthusiasm and they get enthused, and that's what I love.
I know it's not fair for people who have a lot to say, but you need to work on your skills of public speaking. It's not something that you can't learn. It's not a gift. Maybe you are more at ease at first, but when I did my TEDx talk, I mean, you get coached before, right? And you get, uh, and I'm really sorry for those who have a lot of things to share but can't express it well, can't do the whole show. Work on it. Work on it. It's a skill that you can acquire. It's not a gift. And to pretend that it's difficult, ah, it's not difficult. You just got to do it. That's it.
Yeah.
There's no mystery. But the good part is you don't need like 10,000 hours to become a great public speaker. You just need a little bit of practice. And once
Yeah.
you get it, once you are free of all those mind games, it's fun. And you change being nervous, being all frozen into excitement and passion. And that's the whole, instead of being scared, you're excited and changes everything.
Exactly. Usually I pick one or two people in the audience to speak to who I can see are smiling and responding. And then as they get more excited, I get more excited. And then they get more interested, I get more interested. And it really works well to choose. If you try to speak to the whole audience individually one at a time, it can be quite draining because some people won't be responding. Either there's a language issue or they already know it, perhaps, or they're a programmer and you're talking about content, so they couldn't be asked, but they also just couldn't be asked to get up. So they're sitting down and not really enjoying the talk. So there are lots of reasons why people might not respond to you as a speaker in a positive way. Ignore them and pick the people in the audience that are responding to you. And those are the ones that you're speaking to. And that makes it a lot easier.
True.
And also, the one thing I tell every person who asks me, how did you become such a great speaker? I say, well, no one else knew what I meant to say. So when I screwed up, I didn't trip. over myself in the realization of screwing up. I just go with it. The reason we're told to drink 2 liters of water is because an inspirational speaker came up with that, pulled it out of his ass, said it, people ran with it. There is no medical basis for 2 liters of water a day. It's just something he made up on the spot, and it's stuck with us for the rest of our lives.
If you say it, it's true. That's part of the game, and it's also something that we can get into it now. What bothers you in the SEO industry? Before we get into how to become a great SEO, your pet peeves, any conspiracy theories, or anything that really bothers you in the industry or the way SEO is going?
I think the thing that bothers me the most, and I've spoken about this with you, is stupidity. And I define that as taking someone else's word as law without researching it and without using the best tool in your toolbox to think differently and really research whether or not they're telling the truth. I was at a conference where someone who was on stage said that people say that Google does this, but I don't think they do because of this one example. If you're basing the basis for your changes to your website and your client's website on one example, you're going to fail, and you're going to fail badly, and you're not going to understand why. So you need to read multiple sources. You need to use your brain to figure out whether or not you believe these multiple sources. And also you need to read patents. If you just be stupid by reading stupid, you're never going to advance in your career. You're going to be the one who gets up on stage and says something stupid, and people like me in the audience are going to say, well, don't invite that person to another conference because they don't know what they're talking about. They're not fit to be a judge either because they have no clue what they're talking about. Then you just, you say, this is what they said on stage. Here's an example of their slides. This is wrong. It's actually technically incorrect. So you need to be thinking about reading multiple sources. Don't believe everything you read. Read source material books. So if someone says, I read Nicholas Taleb and he said X, go buy the book, Black Swan or Fooled by Randomness or whatever the book is that they're talking about. Read it for yourself and see whether or not that's relevant, or look it up online. Do not believe everything you read online. A lot of it is lies. I've written some of it in the past, not under my name, but under my fake names. So some of the stuff out there I know is incorrect. It's actually factually incorrect, and it was designed for a particular reason. But that's why you need to be using your brain to read multiple sources and research. If you just accept what you're told at a conference by me or by anyone, we could be saying something that is factually inaccurate. Question everything, accept nothing, read multiple sources, and do the work. If you're not willing to do the work, you're never going to be a great SEO. You'll only be an also-ran.
Wow. When you were talking, I was thinking about how I'm guilty of, it's almost a troll. When I say to people, RankBrain is the boss at Google, it's an oversimplification. It's wrong. RankBrain by itself doesn't mean anything without all the multiple layers. But I don't want to say AI. I don't want to say machine learning. I don't want to say deep learning. RankBrain kind of resonates with people. It's a symbol of the AI at Google.
Yeah.
But yeah, and the problem is, if you are some kind of authority in your domain, nobody is going to say crap, but everybody is going to fall in your ass if you are not respected. So it's difficult because correlation doesn't mean causality. That's why we spoke extensively with Bill, and that's the whole problem with all those studies, all those ranking factors, all those. I have an entire channel about SEO conspiracies, and I can't run out of topics. I can't.
Yeah.
It's endless, and I can go, because sometimes something is true, then it's not true, then true again. It changes. So, how to clean up the mess? If we'll go in a couple of seconds into the professional mindset, how to become a great SEO. But now, from outsider perspective, from a client perspective, from someone who needs SEO, how do I clear out the mess? Where do I start if I want just to have a common knowledge, not go deep down? But what would be your advice to get the first level of knowledge?
So the C-suite level of knowledge, the CEO, what does he need or she need to know in order to hire an SEO or digital marketing agency? I would say the minimum level of competency that I would expect out of an SEO, or sorry, out of a CEO when hiring an SEO, would be an understanding of the importance of digital marketing within the full marketing suite and how it adjusts the visibility of your property. So you need to understand that SEO is about improving visibility in order to increase sales in a relevant way. You don't need to know how we do it. You just need to know that we do it for these reasons. Any agency that comes to you and says, we're going to rank you well on keywords, doesn't understand what they're doing. So I have a friend, she runs a PR agency. They use an SEO agency that charges them maybe £100 a month. That's like less than an hour of my time. So I said to her, look, I'll help you for free because these people are just taking your money now. So I showed her how their targets were incorrect because they were focused on the keywords and not on the business objectives. So when you're looking at hiring a digital marketing firm, an SEO, a social media marketer, whatever, it doesn't matter. They need to be focused on your business's objectives, not on ranking well or lots of follows or lots of That's bullshit. You want them to be attuned to your business requirements and your business needs.
Love it, because the first step, I have a bunch of exercises that I give out to my clients or my students, and it's about understanding who you're talking to and who you are. I take the example of the skin. The skin is 2 millimeters thick. I don't know in inches, but come on, guys.
I don't
Come
know
on.
inches. I'm Canadian.
Yes, it's true. Come on, metric system.
Yeah.
So 2 millimeters thick, and you get judged. You never get a second chance to make a first good impression if you don't have the right color of the skin. If you're missing like half of your face, you're gonna be judged on that. Same for a website. Same for your brand. So it's not about knowing deep down, you know who you are, but how do you express it? Are you going to be able to give that first good impression? And also, buyer persona, customer journey, all that stuff, to know who you're talking to. And what I say is the cross. You have two circles, offer, demand, and the cross, and the bigger the intersection, the bigger the treasure.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not literate like you, but I can draw two circles. So people understand what I mean. That's the first step I do. It's not about keywords. It's about understanding who you're talking to, who you are, and then you can get on to the actual plan, the planning. I always say lose a little bit of time in the planning makes you gain time in the execution. Good planning. That's the key. And also, maybe sometimes also try to be a good client, I think is a good advice. Because you always say, okay, you need to find a good SEO, a good agency or whatever. But sometimes client should think about how can I be a good client, meaning how can I not hide anything? How can I open up and really say what they're asking me and not trying to hide. Be a good client.
Absolutely. It's important that the client understands that every time they ask the SEO to do something different, it's like a change request for your dev agency. It slows them down. It causes them to have to go back, reassess, and do something differently because you've asked for a different requirement. So you need to think about SEO or PPC, pay-per-click advertising, or social media like you think about development projects. And if digital marketing agencies thought more like devs and talked about change requests and the alteration to timelines, then it would be easier for them to communicate to the client why it is that they cannot do something as quickly as the client may want them to.
How do you express your job? Are you into Are you strictly SEO? Are you digital marketer? What are you?
I do call myself a digital marketer now. I used to call myself just an SEO because that was mainly what I did. But because I have skills in pay-per-click marketing as well as social media, and I'm often called on to do an overarching strategic piece as well as email marketing. Obviously, I ran mail servers, and list servers were one of the first things we built. So I've had to learn email marketing back in the early 2000s. But because
So
I have to
yeah,
had
you
that broad
covered the whole thing.
knowledge, yeah, and I understand how each of the pieces work. I understand how email marketing works, how it's segmented, how it's targeted and personalized. I understand PPC. I understand how that is also segmented and personalized. I understand SEO, and I understand social media. I can do all of them in a pinch. I can do any of those channels myself. And as a result, I'm able to look at the whole picture. So I call myself a digital marketer, but not all digital marketers have all those skills. It's very rare to
Yeah.
have somebody who can execute
Yeah.
on all the channels.
My advice, if you're starting out today, don't go that route. It's too hard.
That way
You
lies madness.
you gotta go specific. Be the specialist. I mean, it could be an industry, SEO for accounting, or a skill. I'm the best at log analysis or web analytics, whatever, and then broaden up.
Yeah.
Specific to wide. My vertical is search. It could be paid. It could be organic. I do search. I know a little bit about emailing. I know a little bit about community management, but I want people to understand that my thing is search. And it could be on Facebook, it could be on YouTube, it could be on Google, mobile, wherever, search. Remember that she's been doing it for a while, and she's got the skills, she's got the background to be able to say, I'm a digital marketer. So let's get into the fakers. And some of them last very long. But they're very good on stage to have a very nice, convincing talk. But when you see the work, when you see what they're doing, and the problem I have with that is that I'm going to put it in full camera for this. If you stay in your little corner, if you abuse newbies, if you get the money with doing your shit, stay in that corner. The problem comes when you try to be validated by people like Judith and I. When you try to come out of your corner and you want to play with the big boys, then the problems start. So if you are one of those fakers, just stay in the corner. Don't ever come close. You can't lie to people who know. What are you thinking about? I mean, last time I had a little argument with a guy who sells, we call that dream sellers. They don't sell a dream. They don't make people dream. They sell a dream. Your financial independence with e-commerce, or your liberty with a blog, right? This broad, it's not learning Facebook ads. It's just changing your life. And this guy is selling for 2,000, 3,000 euros a website already made. You're going to start to make money tomorrow with e-commerce. It's a WordPress with 5 pages and 1 page with some Amazon affiliate links. You can trump someone who's dreaming about making money on the web. You can't. How do you? And the thing is, if those guys were like, yeah, sure, I sell to newbies. I know it's not great. I know don't try to convince me that what you're doing is not crap. Don't try to convince people who know. That's what bothers me a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Those people, I mean, I can think of ways to make money. So a little bit of arbitrage. So depending on what your profit margin is on the product that you're selling, obviously with Amazon, it's difficult now that they've cut their affiliate commission. But if you have physical product, you're drop shipping, something like that, look at your profit margin and then see if you can arbitrage your way out of that hole that you've just dug for yourself. But if you're going to try to do something with funnels or affiliate or this or that, like OnlyFans, they cut their lifetime affiliate benefits to 1 year. It's crazy. The whole reason why they have their user base that they have now is because they had lifetime affiliates. So another program will come along and they'll take the people away and they won't get them back. People are not loyal to a brand. They go where they want to. We no longer have the kind of brand loyalty we used to many years ago. So you've got to be careful. And if you're selling shit, eventually we're going to come along and we're going to not only clean your shit up, but we're going to make sure that you can't shit on anyone else.
That's the truth. So stay in your corner, hide. The web is a big place, but don't try to come into. And that's the problem, because sometimes for themselves they want to come out of the little shithole and they want to play with the big boys.
Yep.
And that's when it happens. Or you do it like me or like her, and you play open. Yeah, my black hat is not just for show. I know where I come from. I know what I've done.
Yeah.
And that's it. But if you try to pretend that what you're doing is not what it is, when you have the knowledge to judge, everybody today has an opinion about anything. The problem is, from the receiving end, it's also our right to judge, to analyze who is giving that opinion, who is behind. Do you have the credential? I think that's fair game. Everybody can speak, but we also have the right to judge. Are you relevant about what you say?
Yeah.
It goes both ways.
Absolutely. God, yes.
One more thing about the fakers, or the way the industry is going. It cleaned up a lot, thanks to Google, actually. Panda Penguin killed a lot of... What's left of... it's not fakers, but what's left of black hat SEO, in your opinion?
I mean, I'm still a link builder at heart. I still do a lot of link building, but it's outreach now. And so it's much more focused around business objectives.
Let me cut you off. First, where do we draw the line? Where do you become... When do you become... Is it just the guidelines? If you do one link, are you a black hat? Or is it something else?
I think people want to be black hats because it sounds very sexy. For me, a real black hat would be somebody who hacks websites and injects spammy links. That's illegal. And to me, that's what a black hat is. It's somebody who engages in illegal activity, because I don't see link building as being black hat. But most commonly, people feel that any violation of Google's guidelines is something that is black hat. Whereas I see it more as shades of gray, because while I might be violating the letter, I'm not violating the spirit. The spirit of Google's guidelines are about being business focused and not focused on increasing rankings just for the sake of visibility. We used to joke about the Britney Spears nude photos thing, where if you spammed Britney Spears nude photos on your website, you'd get all the guys clicking through hoping for Britney Spears nude photos, but instead they'd be sold a car. Now, you could say that there's some relevance there, but not 100%. And that just doesn't work, and it's not a good quality result, and Google doesn't want you to do that. Building links is against their guidelines. So technically, it's against their guidelines to build links. I like to build links that will drive converting traffic. So I like to build links that will actually result in a business objective being met. A lot of people build links purely for rankings, and that's the wrong reason to be building links. Because if that link stops working, I still get the traffic that converts. You get nothing. So think about it that way. And that's why I see that as gray and not black. But most people will say, if you violate the letter of Google's guidelines, then that's black hat. And I would say it's much more gray if you're in the spirit of things, rather than where I see black hat, which is hacking and illegal activities.
Exactly. That's where I draw the line. Everybody has a moral compass, different moral compass. Some things that are acceptable for you won't be for me or anybody else. But there is the legal side of it, and it's probably the easiest way to build links, okay? Hacking. It's the easiest. Don't look anywhere else. That's the easiest way. You have the user manual on website about, okay, Joomla has a vulnerability into the you can XSS the URL and build your links. So easy. Easy. But that's a few years of jail and a few £100,000, dollars, euros, whatever you want,
Yeah.
in legal fees. If you are 16 and you live in your parents' house, maybe play with it. I don't know. I'm not here to judge. But after a little while, what Christine calls an ass hat is the worst kind. The
Yeah.
one who is going to put the employees, the business in danger by doing shady tactics knowingly, or even worse, like not knowing what they're doing is even
Yeah.
worse than knowing what you're doing. But putting people's jobs in danger, putting the whole business in danger because you are playing around with the yellow line and crossing over, that's the wrong way to do it. So there is
Yeah.
the wrong legal way to do it, and there's a wrong spiritual way to do it when you put other people's job or well-being in danger. Because
Absolutely.
you could just be in that gray zone, but doing something that is let me find an example. How do you call the people who can fortune tellers, right?
Oh yeah.
Fortune tellers. You could empty anybody's wallet and their savings and so on, especially the women who try to find love again. That's the number one target.
Oh yeah.
Or why did I was okay with doing affiliate for poker, but not for casino, because I feel the game of poker is fine with me. Casino, I remember Vegas, with those old people playing the pension, ding, ding. And that image was just not right in my mind. And I was making tons I was at the beginning of the whole poker thing. So it was in the 5 to 6 digits per month. And cutting off myself from the whole casino side was just a moral decision. Had nothing to do. The business decision would have been to go into casino, but I didn't want to. Some other people are fine with it. It just, if it's not illegal, it's legal in marketing.
Yeah.
The only judge we have is how do you look at yourself in the mirror and be okay with what you do. That's it.
Yep.
You don't even care about what other people are saying. How do you look at yourself and be okay with what you do? And again, if you're okay with what we do, but that's not okay with people who know what they're talking about, don't come near them.
Yeah.
Stay away.
Well, because we will step on you and jump up and down on you and squish your liver and brains and kidneys into, small puddles of goo. So, well, if you start with the skull is quite thick, but once you get a good crunch going on the skull, you can really squish the brains, and then if you can collapse the chest, you can squish the lungs and the heart at the same time. That did not look like I was squishing someone's heart and lungs. That looked like something completely different.
When it comes from a lady like her, who can articulate things very well, it's so much more powerful than when it's a big black dog barking at you like me. It just right with a little, look at her little smirk she has, and when she's like bitch slapping you, it's whoa, you might never recover. You might never recover. It's that powerful.
Well, especially since I have the ears of a lot of people in the industry, so who trust me. And if I'm able to express why it is that I'm speaking the way I am about individuals and asking them to be excluded from things, which I have done for very specific reasons, then I'm listened to because I'm able to express myself appropriately, but also I'm trusted because I don't often cry wolf. And if I do, it's for an exceptionally good reason. So if I've had to have you not invited to certain events, then I have a very good reason for doing that. And of the times I've done it, it's been for an exceptionally good reason.
We're touching on a very specific point where I would like to bring in the search awards.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're both head judges, head judge, not regular judge on European Search Awards, UK Search Awards, Global Search Awards, Canada Search Awards, and amongst all those awards, all the numerous awards, the awards we participate in are the top level. It's the primo. So it can change a business, it can change a career, it can change many things. And from the judge side, the judge point of view, you need to be responsible, because also the SEO industry is made that everybody is kind of connected to each other, and there's always this consanguinité. How do you say it in English? When you mix blood, when the blood becomes the bloodline becomes a little bit.
We're all a little bit incestuous.
Exactly. So how do you go about it to have this clear mind, to stay neutral when, of course, you might prefer someone better than the other one on the judging side?
I have been part of a panel where people that I personally disliked intensely won an award because the work that was done was exceptional. The way that the entry was written helped illustrate the good work that they'd done as a team. And they might not have even been involved. They might have just put their name on the entry, and their team who executed such a beautifully produced piece. And so sometimes people you don't like win, and sometimes people you love and really like don't win. But you have to be neutral, because if I tried to push someone forward just because I liked them, or tried to suppress them just because I didn't like them, that would be unethical. So it's a very difficult balance sometimes. And sometimes I will say in private notes or things like that, I really hate this person, but love this entry. It really needs to win, even though I don't like this human being. Because sometimes it isn't them that's done it, and it's their team. So you have to be neutral. If you're not neutral, then you're being utterly unfair.
Why do I need to win an award for my business?
I think when a business is when a company is trying to hire an SEO, PPC, social media, digital marketing agency, there are so many out there. There are no regulations that say what you need in order to call yourself something. So my little brother, who's a mathematician, can call himself an expert SEO, and no one can say boo. However, my little brother cannot call himself a lawyer unless he has a degree. And also did his bar and whatnot. In Ontario, you have to pass the bar. But there's no restriction on calling yourself an SEO here. You can't call yourself an chartered accountant, but you can call yourself a chartered SEO, or what that would be, I don't know. But there are no restrictions on who can call themselves what. So how do we know the company that we're hiring is actually legitimate? And nowadays, oftentimes larger companies and smaller companies will rely on someone else's work being peer reviewed in order to trust them. And that is what an award is. It is a peer review of your work and an indication that your work is above par. So you're being peer reviewed, which is something we don't get outside of scientific magazines, and it's being shown to be of the highest quality for that particular vertical.
And like I said before, amongst all those awards, you got a scale. They don't all account for the same, like for cinema, like for music, like for everything else. It doesn't mean, it was very controversial, because in France, there was, outside of what does Nikki, it was like an online magazine, the main digital magazine, who voted. They sent a questionnaire and people voted, and it was a ranking of the 3 best, or the 5 best SEO in France, and I came out 3rd. But it became very controversial. People got really pissed off, because doesn't mean you are the best SEO. I work in an agency and I'm better. It's not, well, maybe the word best SEO is not Brad Pitt. If he won the Oscar, might not be the best actor, but it's still, like you say, how did you formulate the peer review?
Yeah.
Peer review, and it counts for something.
Yeah. Anytime that you have a group of people that are considered to be very good or exceptional in their industry reviewing other people's work, that's when you see the best of the best rising to the top. So in SEO, we're bringing in other SEOs who are recognized as being good in their fields and who generally have a neutral standing. So they're either consultants like myself or yourself, or they are in-house. So they don't have a particular affiliation because they're in an agency. And we're able to bring our expertise to judging other people's work and peer reviewing it. So Brad Pitt gets peer reviewed by fellow actors. We get peer reviewed by fellow SEOs, or I mean, neither of us can enter because we're judges, but people who enter are peer reviewed by their peers and judged as to whether or not they're the best.
What about the fact, not an opinion, but the fact that sometimes, well, it's not the best overall in the world. It's just the best who submitted to the category. And sometimes we even switch entries from one category to another. But if they don't enter, maybe they are the best. Maybe they are much better than the one who won. But we can't. I mean, we can't go into the world and drag. Well, we kind of do it sometimes, like advise people you should compete.
Yeah.
But it's limited to our entourage, right?
Sphere, yeah. I think that's the hardest thing, is that sometimes I will come across a piece of marketing that I think is excellent in SEO, but the people who put it out aren't willing to be judged for a lot of reasons. Either they're unwilling to be judged because they don't want to reveal anything beyond what can be seen, and that can include budgets, it can include specific tactics that they leveraged that might not be immediately obvious. But in SEO, generally, anything that you do, we can see. We have tools and we can see what you're doing. So you might as well enter. Sometimes it's cost. They can't afford it. And sometimes their client will not allow them to enter. So there are a lot of reasons why people don't want to enter. But what we do as judges is we can only judge what we see. So much like the journal Nature can only peer review what is submitted, they can't peer review everything that's going on out there, all research projects. We can't peer review all SEO projects. We can only peer review what's given to us. So that's why there are specific ones for different areas of the world. So APAC, we have an APAC Search Awards, which means that people in the Asia Pacific region enter a different award set than people in the Nordics. Yes. And people in the Nordics enter a different award than the people in the US. Each different region has their own regional, and then we have a global now. And the global one is where everybody comes together, and that's the hardest one. That's where cool. We have to judge a campaign that was executed in MENA, Middle East, North Africa, against something that was executed in Asia, against something that was executed in the US, against something that was executed in the UK. And that means that we're not just looking at what's right for that market, but we're looking for what's right in each of the individual markets and for the industry as a whole. That will be the most difficult one to judge. But otherwise, we do keep it very focused on the area and very focused on the vertical. So don't enter the best SEO campaign category first off. Enter the vertical. That's usually easier to be reviewed in and win. And then you enter the best SEO campaign.
Well, we're going to get into a second into how to build a career and your little... But same, if you want to enter a category, look right next to the category. And sometimes it's from 1 to 3, the number of entries. So you got a lot more chances to... And sometimes it's like integrated search. Instead of SEO campaign, what you did is probably what's called integrated search. And it's also a fact. It's not an opinion. Those awards can make a difference. Those awards I wouldn't say they break a business if you don't get it, but they would definitely, and proof is in the pudding. You look at anybody who won one of these awards, European especially, or because it's before the global, I guess the European Search Award was the most prestigious. It's on the front page of the tool, of the agency, or the individual. It's right there, the biggest, we call it élément de réassurance, reassuring element. I don't know what's the right marketing term.
It would be the biggest reassurance, full stop. You are reassured that a group of peers have looked at somebody else's work and judged it to be award-worthy. So if you're not confident or sure that the agency itself are the right agency, then having peer-reviewed work is the way to make it stick.
Exactly. No, enter the search awards, all of them, all you can, because it's a learning process. If you win the first time, amazing. But it's very often the entry is important. You got to learn how to make a good entry. You got to first get shortlisted, and it's the way it goes. And from our point of view, it doesn't make really a difference. We just judge on the moment. So if you entered 15 times before, sometimes it comes into play, but very rarely. It's more about the moment right now, and you are compared to others. But yeah, doing improving. Sometimes it's hard because some very valuable entries are not going to win because the entry itself, the way they, and of course it's a disadvantage if you are French and you want to enter the European Search Awards and you can't express yourself well in English. Well, find a solution. It's not difficult to find someone who can correct your English. Okay, please
or
make an
just
effort.
submit a version in French, because a lot of the judges read French, and any words that I get stuck on, I just pop into DeepL or Google Translate, and I understand the context of the word. So I can usually read a French entry, and a lot of the people who judge will speak another European language. So if you're having trouble, submit it in your native language first, and we will do the translation ourselves. We had one entry for, I think, European, where they had clearly used a bad version of Google Translate, and their entry really, it was a struggle to read. It would have been better for them to enter in whatever their language was and then let us translate it. Instead of what they did. It was either Turkish or Romanian, I'm not sure. But the translation to English didn't quite work. And it sounded like an amazing entry. It sounded like they revolutionized a business. But unfortunately, they didn't quite communicate well enough for us to be able to award it.
What advice would you give to someone who wants to break into the industry, but either at the Search Awards or any event, what they're going to see is a bunch of people getting together, like the gang.
Yeah.
Because you're all happy to find it, and you start. And from the outsider perspective, it looks like a bubble that you can't break in. Well, I don't think. What's your point of view on that? How do you break in the bubble?
Well, if you're going to break in, always wear gloves and try not to leave any DNA evidence behind. Use new products, and use a very, very cheap gun. And then when you throw it into salt water, it actually corrodes enough that you can't get any evidence off of it. So, besides my tips for breaking in and murdering people. I think the reason why it looks like we're all in a bubble of old people that are cliquey, we call them cliques, is that because we've gone around to all the conferences together, we're really comfortable with each other. And a lot of us are really shy, and it doesn't seem that way because we stand up on stage. But in person, one-to-one, we can be very shy. So we tend to congregate together, but I will often deliberately tilt my body sideways to show an opening so that someone can come in and join our conversation. And if I see someone on the edge, I'll invite them in to have a chat, because I remember what it was like, 20 years ago when I was on the outside trying to break in. Or talk with someone over Twitter. Be careful with women versus men, because the perception that you create as a guy just wanting to pal around and chat with a woman is sometimes not what you think. It seems really creepy, but you don't mean it that way. It just comes across that way. So be careful, but talk with them on Twitter. Or you're just French. Are you just French? Yeah. Why does he keep looking down my top?
You get away with a lot of just being French.
Yeah, you really do. Or French Canadian. But
French speaking, all the French speaking, just a superpower.
Or have a British accent in the States. That's the other one. But talk with them on Twitter beforehand. Say, hey, I'm going to be at your conference. What's the next one I'm speaking at? Maybe speaking at, let's say, Brighton SEO. So say, or Digital Zone in Istanbul or whatever. I'm going to be at your conference that you're speaking at. I'm really interested in just asking you a couple of questions. Nothing too onerous. Would it be okay for me to introduce myself and chat? That way, the speaker all of a sudden has an affinity with you. They have a relationship, and then afterwards at drinks, when you sort of come around, if it's somebody like me or somebody affable, like I don't know, Craig sometimes is like that. He can be very friendly, but he's a bit scary sometimes to people who don't know him because he seems like my little brother. My little brother is a brick wall of Aikido muscle. And if you look at him the wrong way, he has this look on his face that makes it look like he's going to murder you, but he's the biggest softie you could ever meet. So sometimes it's very intimidating the way people look at you, but if you have an affinity there and you've had a conversation with them, then they'll often invite you in. It's not that we're being exclusive. It's just that we're familiar with everybody. It's easier to fall into step with friends than it is to try to make new friends at every conference, especially at the end when you're tired and you just want to have a glass of wine and a chat about, just shoot the shit about SEO and know that the person that you're talking to isn't blogging this. So it's that trust and that affinity and the comfort. So sometimes it's not that we're trying to block you out. It's that we've all had bad experiences. I've been sexually assaulted. Other people have been blogged about. Other people have been forcibly kissed. It's not easy being female at a conference because we're always under some sort of threat. But if you have an affinity with the speaker beforehand, it's easier to break into that bubble. So if you want to break in, have a neutral conversation with them. Be careful because, I've been sexually assaulted. Most recently, I think it was 2019 was the last time I was sexually assaulted at a conference, and it's 2020. So, and I'm 50. So seriously, people, it's like you really just need to grow up. But if I'm facing that at my age with my experience, what are other people facing? So just understand that, be sensitive, and be neutral.
In France, the other day I was we organized this poker tournament every Thursday, and it was late night, so it was just 3 or 4 of us, and a name came up, and the two girls were like, "No, we don't even come near that guy. We don't even want to know. Just no." Why? Because when that guy gets drunk, he just thinks that the female that says hi wants to sleep with him. So it's no excuse. I mean, you're a professional. Just behave. If you can't handle alcohol like me, just don't drink too much. I can't. It's me. It's not even about getting drunk. It's like poison. Like I don't feel well if I get too drunk. I don't. I'm part Asian, and so I'm missing an enzyme to digest alcohol. So it's really like poison more than just. And I don't like I like weed way better than alcohol, or for that matter. But yes. Because you need to get loose, so you're gonna have a couple of drinks, and then, yeah. So that's why it can seem like there's a bubble, because the guys who are around the girls know that they have to protect them. The girls feel protected, and so it becomes a block almost, and so people feel excluded. And it's not that, it's safety, or it's just that we don't know anyone. And let's say I was in Belgium. I'm comfortable because I speak French, so I was in Belgium. But then we went to Amsterdam, and I don't feel comfortable because I don't speak any Dutch. So I was very uncomfortable in Amsterdam, and I loved it. It was amazing. But I tended to stick with people that I knew because they were speaking English when I couldn't talk with people in their native language. It was intimidating, and I didn't know what was going on. And it's scary as a woman on your own, because I'm there without my husband, to be there alone. So I'm always open, and I'm always welcoming of people into any circle that I'm in. Just be aware that sometimes we're not blocking you because we're being cliquey or exclusionary. We're just being careful, and we're being safety conscious, because women at conferences often travel without any partner support. So no girlfriend, no boyfriend, no husband, no wife. We're there alone.
And so we're kind of exposed.
I understand. That's a good point that you make as a. And how was it to come to grow into this industry, which was until recently just male dominated? Was it easier or more difficult? How was it?
I think it was very difficult. So I was programming from a very young age, 15. And when I was programming in the lab, there was a joke. And the joke was suddenly you're sitting down at your computer, typing away, programming, and suddenly you find yourself face planted first into the wall, but you've just had the best experience of your life. What happened? Judith stood up and turned around because I was very well endowed. And it hurts when you're a girl at 15 to have jokes like that. So I've had to have a thick skin from a very young age. I was tackled to the ground by 5 guys. Took 5 guys, I'd like to point out. 1 on each limb, and then the 5th one pulled my top up. So at a very young age, I've had to be quite blocked against any kind of hurt. And as a result, being in a male-dominated industry like SEO was a little easier. It wasn't always easy. At one conference, one SES conference, they're now dead, but SES London, there was a guy who used to be infamous for getting incredibly drunk, and then basically he never remembered what happened. It wasn't that he blacked out and passed out. He just had blackouts where he didn't remember what he did. He threw his wine at me and said that I would never amount to anything in SEO because I was a woman. And he's dead now, and I'm here doing this.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. He's dead now, actually dead in the ground, buried, and I'm still here. So, boys.
Karma is a bitch. Karma is a bitch.
But yes, it was difficult. And I do sympathize with other women who came up during the time that I did. A lot of them have retired. But there were a lot of women who were there, and we used to get together at the conferences as well and share stories. I think that it was as difficult then as it is now to be any kind of person in SEO coming through. Now it's more difficult to be any gender, and push through because so many people claim to be SEOs. Back then it was difficult to push through as a woman because you were seen as not necessarily as good as a guy. I was able to prove that I was as good as a guy because I was as good as a guy, and better in a lot of cases, as proven by the people who spouted bullshit on stage and gave me my big break. So I think it's difficult to be a woman. I love that there are so many women-focused groups. So women in digital, women in technology, Girl Geek dinners, women in tech SEO, all sorts. There are all sorts of women's networks, and they help you cope with the fact that you feel disempowered at times, but men do too. And men are subjected by other men to the same kind of disempowerment that women are. It's just we're quite sensitive to it. And I guess guys grow up expecting to be punched in the face regularly. I don't know.
Wow, we're getting deep here. Because it definitely goes beyond the SEO industry. But one thing, and I plead guilty, the whole gossip part is so much fun.
Oh, God, yes. Do you know how many people I'm sleeping with right now? I've lost track.
So yeah, there's this whole gossip part and bad mouthing, talking shit, which I think my advice is, if you're not ready to take it in the face, if you gotta be able to balance out. Okay, the bad side, the haters, the trollers. That's the easy part also to say. Yeah, no, I'm not sensitive to critics, but also you gotta be bulletproof against the other side, because if it gets to your head, don't get high with your own dope. You are making famous people on the web. Don't
drink the Kool-Aid, man.
Don't drink the Kool-Aid, because when I make a joke out of it when I see a first-time public speaker gets on stage with his mic, with the, how do you call it, the badge, the thing of the conference, the paper.
Yeah. The badge.
Yeah. Okay.
Literally.
The mic, the badge, right after the conference, before the night is over, the Twitter profile is changed to I'm a public speaker now. And it's cute, but it's just the first step is dangerous. Think about the club of the 27, all those 27-year-old rock stars who either kill themselves or destroy themselves to death just because they lost grasp on what was real, who was their real friend, and so on. So yeah, don't get high on your own on your own stuff, on your own stats. You are there to make people famous on the internet, companies, individual, whatever. That's my advice. What would be your way now, getting into the grind? What's was your unique or maybe your different perspective than others on how to become how to break into the industry?
I think it's very difficult to break into the industry these days. And like you said earlier, you have to have something you specialize in. I tend to do more talks about link building than I do about digital marketing because it's an easier concept to grasp, a single point rather than having to grasp the whole. So it's much easier to be a single point specialist than it is to be a generalist. So pick something that you can do well, that you're passionate about, and that you feel comfortable with. And that should be the thing that you focus on. Writing articles about, doing blog posts for other people about, doing something like this where you get interviewed, doing a podcast. Be careful about over broadcasting. Make sure that you have something unique and valuable to share and do the work. You are not going to break into this industry off of 6 months of chancer SEO. You have to put in the hard graft.
Any communicator, anyway, has maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 things at the most they're gonna repeat over and over, and it doesn't make sense because people are gonna put you into a bucket. That's
Yep.
the way it is. So it's better to decide yourself what bucket you're gonna be into rather than let people decide. Because if you're too broad and if your message is too blurry or you didn't think hard enough about you are the message versus the medium is the message. In the 50s, I forget the guy's name who wrote that book, The Medium is the Message. So you do have to know YouTube is different than Twitch, which is different than a podcast. The medium is the message, but also you are the message, and learn how to craft yourself. The book You Are the Message was written by the infamous Roger Ailes, who is also well known for killing himself because he abused women, but that doesn't that's the personal part. On the professional part, you can't take out the fact that the guy was brilliant and he created he got presidents elected, okay? Presidents, even the current one, Trump, that's him. That was him. And his book was You Are the Message, and how you need to craft yourself into a good communicator.
Yeah.
And even look at me with my broken English doing something in English. You don't need to be literate and express yourself well. And she doesn't have a YouTube channel and a podcast, and I do several, and I've been doing it for years. And she's better than me at this. So come on, get off your ass, people. Start speaking. That's also what would be your recommendation for? We say, okay, go specific, then next step.
So you've got once you have your specialty, you do need to be writing articles. You do need to open your own YouTube channel, do a podcast, do whatever. Be careful about not, as I said, not broadcasting too much. Don't be doing it every day. There's not enough stuff in link building, for example, to do something every single day for the rest of your life. You're going to slow down after a while, but do something regularly, once a week, once every other week. Make sure that you have something to say. And as you do it, broadcast it out, but also reach out to people and invite them on your video channel to interview them or whatever. And then they'll help broadcast your message. Don't expect me to be retweeting everything. So, before you think, oh, I'll invite Judith. I have like 9,000 followers who don't read anything that I put out there, I'm sure. But do invite people who will magnify your profile to their followers and then gain your own followers. Use LinkedIn smartly, but you really need to walk the fine line between being a spammer of your image and just being a self-promoter. And I think if you look at other successful self-promoters, I am not saying this in a bad way, but Aleda is one of the people I look at for how to build up a profile. She's an engineer, I'd like to start off with, and incredibly smart. So if you're not incredibly smart at what you do and you haven't picked your specialty, stop, step back, find your specialty, read up on it, make sure that you're the expert, and then start doing things. But look at people like that. Look at Craig Campbell. Look at other people in the industry who have come up to prominence more recently than my 24 or however many years that I've been around. That's too long. You have to go back too far. Look at people who have come to prominence recently and look at all the work that they have put in. And they put in a shed load of work. It is not 5 minutes or 6 months. It is years. So you need to start now and keep building and keep working. And please don't expect it to happen overnight. It doesn't happen that way anymore. You really need to be an expert in your industry, in your chosen specialty, and then you have to be trusted. And with that trust will come speaking opportunities that you got to pitch. You have to have a good pitch and you have to prove your worth.
Or alternative,
you could buy your way up to the top like Neil Patel.
No. Document your growth. I don't know anything about SEO, and I'm going to learn, and I'm going to document my journey into becoming somebody who is respectable and knows SEO. It's much better to have the balls to do that than faking it. Nobody, and if we're in the business of empathy, trying to connect, of course, there's the expert side. That's easy and comfortable, but I think it's maybe not smarter, but it's a smart way to go about it, to be humble and say, hey, I'm starting out, but I'm going to document my journey into this. And think about it. If you want to resonate with people, the expert, yeah, sure, but you're going to resonate with someone who is more... I take the example of mountain biking, and then you know that I love to go down the mountain at very high speed and crash into trees. And my YouTube channel was just a joke. I was posting on my crashes, my fails. And it became a thing. And it became a... just showing your weakness might be actually the real power, you know? Everybody was making big jumps and big things. I was just crashing. Yeah, I posted all the crash and it worked. So
yeah, is that why you went into the tree though? Just for the likes, man, just for the likes.
I did fake a couple of crashes. I did. But usually they were... 99% of them were totally genuine.
You didn't end up in the hospital in traction.
Well, the problem with that sport is you get better, so you crash less. But when you crash, it's a lot more consequences, a lot more. I showed you yesterday. We were on WhatsApp, and I thought, yeah, my friend, he died 3 times. You were like, what? He died 3 times? Yeah, he died. He's still alive, but he was like no pulse for 3 times. And you know how I destroyed myself last summer into lots of pieces because, you go faster and you crash harder. You crash less, but whatever. That's my drug, adrenaline. I can't. It's probably the most dangerous of them all, actually.
Yeah. Of all the addictions you could have, adrenaline is one of the ones that will kill you.
I know, but what do you want me to do? I'm not going to quit. One life.
You're not going to go into not Alcoholics Anonymous. What's the other one? Drugs.
Mountain Bikers Anonymous.
Yeah.
No. It's also true with, let's go back to SEO, because when people get too much into the matrix and they can't get back, especially when they start talking to normal people. What I love is when you see the eyes. What's the race? The Labrador. The same in English.
Labradors are dogs.
Yeah, but they have that stupid look in the eye.
Oh
right?
Yes, yeah.
So when you talk to someone, you know, when you're at Christmas dinner and on Jody, you're talking about what you're doing, and you see the Labrador's eyes. That's when you lost them. So my trick is, you are speaking to people, it's their third language, not the second, but the third. Always remember that. And you should be able to express yourself in a way that people are actually going to understand what the hell you're talking about. But if you see that glare into the eye, not a good sign.
Well, even at a conference too, if you see that glaze come over a speaker's eyes, it probably means that they're tired.
Yes.
But they're trying desperately to not be insulting. But yeah, it's difficult to talk to people about what we do sometimes as well, because we do deal with machine learning and deep learning on a quite regular basis. Obviously, none of us is dealing with AI because AI infers that the system knows what it doesn't know and seeks to learn it. And none of us are working with systems like that I'm aware of in the SEO industry, because we wouldn't be an SEO then. But we're looking at deep learning and machine learning systems all the time. So we're in a different sphere to other people. And I sit on a think tank where we're trying to change agriculture using deep learning and hopefully machine learning. And the other people on the think tank didn't understand the difference between machine learning and deep learning. So how is Auntie Sharon or Uncle Tony going to understand the difference between deep learning and machine learning, let alone what the heck I do?
True. Third language. Third, not second, third language. And you should be fine. So now I start to get a little reputation. I work for an agency. I start to have a little name for myself. What would be the next step? Do you really advise to start working on your personal branding or staying invisible maybe? And even if you're the best at what you do, or I guess you're going to say it depends. But is that a good advice to work on your brand, like yourself, your brand, personal brand?
I think you should always have your personal brand in your sights. When I worked at an agency, one of the agencies I worked at bullying was endemic, and speaking outside of the agency had to be done on my own personal time. So I had no choice. I had to develop my brand very early on. And I actually had different names for different brands that I created over the years, and they didn't stick, but my name stuck. So that's why it's Decabit Consultancy, is because Decabit was a unique word that had no relation to any of my previous spamming identities. And it was a way of branding myself without having to rely on the agency that I was speaking at to give me visibility. If you're at an agency, you are speaking on their behalf, but you also have brand you. So you're building two brands at the same time, your brand and the brand that is of the agency you work at. If you're in-house, it's the same thing. You represent the company you're speaking on behalf of, as well as yourself. Once you become just yourself, and that does take time, please don't jump into it right away unless you have a lot of money in the bank. Once you become brand you, then you're only ever speaking on behalf of yourself, but you're your brand. So my brand is irreverent. I swear a lot. I used to be black hat. I do try to do my best job for my clients. We all do. Or at least I hope we all do. And that is my brand. But that might not be your brand. Your brand might be cheeky girl next door, never swears, and is really smart at technical SEO. So your specialty is picking apart code and finding ways to optimize it. So you've got to find what it is you're good at and have that as brand you, as well as being the brand associated with the agency or whatever you're working at. But it's brand you first. So build personal brand at the same time as working for an agency. And your agency will help you increase your personal brand as well as their brand. So if you join an agency, they will help expand your reach because it's in their interest.
Let's remind people that you might need to do both if you really want to be experienced. If you work in an agency, you're going to be good at one thing. If you work in-house, you're going to do a lot of different things. I think both experiences are good. So instead of just building a career in-house, hey, change jobs a little bit. You're young. What about the rebuttal of I feel like I don't have anything to say. I'm not special. I don't have like a new angle. My advice is always, well, you are the idea. You are special. That's your advice. That's your point of view. That makes something. That's something that nobody can take away from you. It's you. And people don't understand that. That's it. That's it. I'm me. This is her, and it's her point of view, her way of angle. Even if we approach the same thing, it's her angle that's gonna make her unique, and that's what you should focus on. Don't try to find a new SEO strategy that's gonna break out in the industry. Don't try to find like the little trick that's gonna save hundreds of millions of in PPC. That's very rare, and it's not the long-term plan. You are the idea. You are special, and it's as easy and as hard as that. Because in this damn age, if you don't build yourself as, if you don't understand that you are the brand, that you carry yourself, if you got to put value in yourself, because the agency, your client, or your employer, that's one thing. But like you said, yeah, double down, and you won't regret it. We'll talk about it. Maybe you hesitate now, but if you get into it, and we talk about it in a couple of years, like we said before, be careful of not, doesn't get to your head the critics. Judge who is critiquing. Evaluate who is saying something. Everybody can say whatever they want, but who are they? Are they legit or not? And that should already sort out like 99% of the people. And then on the other hand, don't get high on your own stash.
Absolutely. Well, if you're going to get high on your own stash, make sure you've segmented the bit of your stash that you're not selling that is for you. And then the rest of it you don't get high on because that's your profit margin. But that that aside, I have practical tips for everything. How to get rid of guns after you've shot someone. How to make sure that you're profitable in your drug empire.
Okay, the work, the hustle, the superpower of asking. I know a little bit Bill Swalski, not that much, but I asked him. He could have. The worst thing is he could have said no. I won't die. I won't bleed if he doesn't want to record a podcast, and I can come back to him the next week or the next month or the next year. Be patient. But the power of asking is a superpower, I think, and too many people are afraid to just ask. You gotta, like during stage, there's a way to ask, there's a way to go about it. Prepare, do your work, anticipate, work it out on social media before the event. Planning, and then network. In events, I think it's more interesting to not go to the talks and just talk to especially when everybody is in the talks and all the booths are empty. There's no. Go talk to these people. They bought a booth. They got value.
Yeah.
Network. And because we're going to get into the skills. I'm not going to give it an answer first. I want yours. What are, you got skills that you can work on, but you got stuff, you got a mindset. You got special assets that are required to be excellent, the best at what you do in SEO. What is your point of view on that?
I think that you have to have a personality that lends itself to being open and gregarious. And some of us are introverts, so we also retreat. But you need to be comfortable speaking to people and having conversations and connecting. You have to be open to new experiences. It's kind of like trying beer. I only found out that I had a preference for a typical type of beer because I tried a lot of different beers. I'm not a lager girl, I'm an ale girl, and I'm specifically a ruby ale girl because I drank a lot of beer to get there. So you have to have a lot of conversations to open yourself up to a lot of opportunities and a lot of ideas in order to find yourself. It's a journey, and you should never close yourself off to anything because you think that's not you. Always talk to somebody, even if you think it's not you. So if you go to tool suppliers and you're like, well, I do know PPC, but I'm going to talk to you about this tool because maybe you'll give me different insights into landing pages that I can use for SEO. So always be open to something new. And when I went to university, they forced us to do hard science in an arts degree. And in a science degree, they force you to do an arts course. Why? Because there's always that chance you're in the wrong major. So be open to the possibility that you're in the wrong major. If you start off in link building, don't be afraid to cross across to technical SEO. There's nothing wrong with that. It just means that you have a different specialty.
If I read between the lines, there's a contradiction here because you got to be so sure of yourself. You got to be so confident, so brave. You need to be brave, but also you need to be
brave.
so humble. All the time, I say everything I know is that I know nothing. So it's self-confidence, being brave, but at the same time, be so, and I'm, like she said, like really deep down humble, like at the level of, I don't know anything. I can be ready to be wrong about everything I studied for the past 5 years because I took the wrong path. And that's also another way to be brave. So how do you balance out the self-confidence and the humility? I think first step is you got to know who you are. If you are lost within yourself, that's the first step. Be in check with yourself. Don't hide the demons in the closet. They are there. Just keep them in check. Don't live throughout the eyes of somebody else. Like I said, don't get high on your own supply. But then, be so confident that you're going to crush it, because I think the number one asset you have for great SEO, the common thread, is never giving up. Never give up. And especially if you do code, especially if you do audits, especially if you want to solve the puzzle, never giving up, I think, is everything else is a consequence of that never giving up mindset. What do you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I love the be humble, but be confident. So if no one knows who you are, you have nothing to lose. Just be yourself. You know what you know. Don't worry about other people not knowing what you know. Don't try to prove yourself, or you end up on that stage spouting utter bullshit and having everybody in the audience go, I will never trust you or your company again. So just be yourself. You know what you know, but be open to the fact that maybe you're wrong. And I think you have to be very comfortable and confident in yourself to accept that maybe you're wrong and someone else might have a different or better way of doing things, and you might need to adapt to do things better. But that doesn't make you completely useless. It just makes you a stronger person for being able to recognize that your way wasn't maybe the best way for you, and you've just discovered a new way. So yeah, humble but confident. And so I'm thinking Brighton SEO because it's the easiest to imagine intimidating circumstances.
Yeah.
Why? Because you've got 3,000 people whose expertise is SEO, and you never know who's the top versus the bottom. And I've been in situations where people have walked along, they don't know who I am. I don't speak there very often. And they come along and they're like, oh yes, I'm doing this, I'm so good. And the person standing next to me is like, do you not know who you're talking to, dude? Because you look like a wanker of the nth degree. And I'll just smile and, be polite. And then they'll go off thinking that they just showed off to someone, and the two of us will laugh and go off and have a beer. So don't bluster. Just be yourself. Don't try to prove yourself or your knowledge. Just be yourself and be open to receiving information from other people. And just that's a way of being humble, is to accept that sometimes other people are smarter than you. And sometimes it's something like Brighton SEO or Digital Zone in Istanbul or any of the other conferences around the world. I keep saying Digital Zone. I'm not speaking there. I just like the conference. They're lovely people.
You're just a liar. You show me the check. You show me the wire transfer right before. We're going to a lot of money to say that on the podcast.
Yeah, Yigit's like, I'm going to have to write her another check now. He invited me. He always invites me. But I'm sadly going to be in Italy for a conference that had to be postponed from March. But it's wine. It was going to be wine on my 50th birthday, but now it's wine in October.
Wine and chocolate go well together, actually.
Exactly.
Yes, but if I want to play it safe, what am I going to do? I'm going to play the rooster. I'm going to be, hey, I am the web. I know. And also, I'm going to have no tone. I'm going to be just flat, trying to please everyone, I'm trying to level up, trying to make myself bigger than I am, and I'm also gonna have a flat type of speech that doesn't resonate with everyone because it's trying to please everyone. Go reverse. Go her way. Go my way. Make yourself noticed. And it's not about wearing a hat or wearing a really attractive dark red lipstick. It's about double down on what you are good at. Like she said, don't try to be good at everything. You got something that you prefer, because if you don't like it, I have a problem with the word passion, being passionate. I'm passionate about photography and mountain biking. I don't know if I'm passionate about SEO. I love it. I like it a lot. But at least you got to express some enthusiasm, right?
Yeah.
Passion is a word. I don't know. Maybe it's the way it's in French. My translation in English doesn't fit well. But at least, yeah, be a little bit interested in what you're talking about. That's for sure. At least.
Well, think about it. You're never going to be able to please everyone at an orgy. So focus on one or two people that you're going to pleasure and just do that well. Don't just try to do everybody at once, because that never works. Trust me, I've been there. It just does not work. So if you think about it in that way, you're never going to please everyone at the orgy.
Yeah, but that's like your. I guess it goes down to the brain. The defense mechanism of the brain is, I don't want to be attacked. I don't want to be to make any. So you're trying to, okay, I want every boy and girl in the room to every naked person in the room to like me. It just doesn't work that way. But I think it's the way we are programmed. The way our brain is trying to. It's for our own good, actually, that the brain, and that's why also downhill mountain biking is a good exercise to mess with your brain, because your brain is saying brake, 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 and you're like, nope, until you're like, I need to brake now.
Yeah. And the tree that meets you does introduce you to the fact that every action has an equal and opposite reaction.
Yep, exactly.
But yeah, I think that you need to just be yourself, and it's very difficult to be yourself when you're standing up in front of people and you want them to all like you, because you know the only way you're going to get invited back is if you score high.
Yes.
But you'll score high if you know what you're talking about and you're passionate about it and you deliver good information. If you're just doing the same thing that somebody else did last week on YouTube or whatever, or the same conference talk that you've done time after time after time, the last 6 or 8 conferences, it gets very tired very quickly. So you need to just be yourself, bring passion to it. And one of the tricks that I use, which is very difficult, you have to be very, very, very confident, is I pick something unique about the moment. In that moment, I will look around a room and I will use that as an example. So for instance, yesterday at the keynote, I used handbag as an example because there's one just off to the side of my computer that is broken and it needs a little bit of a fix. So I looked at that and I used that as an example. Or you can use something in the audience. You can point to someone and say, like that red handbag you've got, or like that lovely cane that you're sporting there, sir.
I've seen her with my own eyes playing the whole like cleavage thing in the moment, because her cleavage was noticeable enough. you couldn't miss it. She went, that's brave, right?
Oh, okay. The award. Yeah. So I brought the wrong dress and oh my God. So one size too small and I was boobalicious. I actually had a guy thank me for the view over dinner. And you have to make a choice in your life. When something like that goes that wrong, that's going very wrong. You have to stand up on stage in Iceland and say, hey, or wherever. And I had no choice. I had to own the moment and own the mistake. And it's that ownership of the mistake that's being brave. And you have to own your mistakes. If you try to cover them up or hide them, then it just comes back to bite you in the ass. And sadly, my cleavage didn't win. I was disappointed.
I didn't see the original one. I saw the reboot because it worked so well that you used it again. It was for the UK Search Awards, or no, maybe so you brought up, it was the right dress with the right cleavage, but you played that card again. And also, I think if you go on to public speaking, you're already on stage. You don't need to level yourself up in being the super expert with the, no, take yourself down to the level of the audience and try to, everything is going to, you don't need to hype yourself. You're already hyped because you're on stage. That's enough.
Yeah.
And about the work, like you said, too many people, well, it's maybe the old dogs talking because we've done tens of thousands of hours of work and we can look back. You can only look back in your life. You can look ahead. But the fact is that the shortcuts are getting shortcuts as far as SEO goes. It's not sexy. It's not glamorous. It's nothing. We know how to do the job. You know what is required to do the work. And it's not going to change ever. There's not going to be like any update that's going to change the game ever. Since especially whatever you want to call it is the boss at Google, but not Amit Singhal anymore. Rank brain, machine learning, deep learning, AI, whatever. That path is not going away anytime soon, and we know how to feed the beast. So now it's time to prove that what you do works. And like I said, the truth is on the screen. The fakers can fake it in public talks. They can fake it on YouTube. They can. The proof is on the screen. There is no better business card than ranking first on Google. They're gonna find who is the SEO billionaire. Trust me. They're gonna find you. They're gonna find you. They're gonna know who is responsible for that first spot on Google. No, I think that's it. That's the best. The best thing you can do is rank.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it's difficult and it's arduous, but if you rank well for your targets that are relevant to your business, then it's going to work. But if you rank for stuff that's irrelevant and you get no conversions, then what's the point?
Exactly. Well, that's where you come in with the rest. Whatever is around SEO, which is actually, in my opinion, becoming even more important. Like we said before, content marketing with the SEO layer is the way to go. SEO in itself, yeah, for bed and breakfast in Northern England, in Manchester, yeah, why not? But not for, if you want to play with the big boys, you need to do everything around SEO very, very, very well. It's not 2005 anymore. Back then it was easy. One keyword, one page, one CTR, and the money. That's it. Yep. Keyword, page, CTR, money. 100% Google. Now it's a whole journey for your customer. I like to call it the information tunnel and not the conversion tunnel. But if you follow them all throughout this information tunnel, we got the power. Why? Because search is better than... I like your point of view on that, actually. I state that search is the best pipeline just because of intent. Emailing, social media, all that stuff. I'm not saying it doesn't work. I'm saying search is better because of the intent behind the process.
I think so. I have a slightly different view.
Yeah, let's argue a little bit.
Email marketing is one of the best converting channels, but it's also one of the lowest converting channels usually because you have to have already acquired people. So these are already existing customers that you're selling to usually on an email marketing channel. You've got to do double opt-ins now. You've got to make sure your list is scrubbed regularly. You've got GDPR. Yeah. It's a nightmare. Your organic and paid marketing channels both of them are pulling people in on relevant keywords to convert them. So the content marketing on the site, which is SEO, is key for both PPC and SEO because you have to bring people in at different points in their customer journey, their journey through to purchase. And so without the content there in the right way, in the right place, optimized in the right way, PPC costs you a bomb and SEO doesn't work. So both of those channels will funnel people through to sale. Email marketing is a hugely underrated. It's the middle child of digital marketing, I always say. It's really important, makes you lots of money, but it's underutilized. And then social media is a way of maintaining that touch post-purchase as well with the customer. So it's not just email marketing, it's also social, it's also blog. And those types of post-purchase touch points help keep the customer engaged so that they purchase again and again. Otherwise, you have to reacquire them through PPC and SEO each time. And while they may trust you because they remember you from the last time they purchased, you have had to go through the effort and work of reacquiring them. Whereas if you keep a soft touch with them through email and social, then they'll convert much more easily without having to reacquire them every time. And there's always a chance you'll lose them every time they head to a search engine. So if you're on Amazon and selling, make sure that you're doing something to nurture that relationship. If you're on Google and selling, make sure that you're capturing all the information, nurturing the relationship. Post-purchase optimization is one of the most poorly utilized topics and strategies, because you've got the person. Now keep selling them to them. It's cheaper and easier to keep selling to them.
I think it's actually somebody said it's 5 times cheaper. Again, it could be just someone saying like it's 5 times cheaper to sell to an existing customer than. But the point is, and while you were talking, I was like, damn, she's right, because for myself, emailing is the number one channel, but I did it right, meaning I build up my tribe first. Then I can sell. I think that needs to be in that order. Otherwise, email marketing, just bazooka type of email marketing, yeah, it works, but it's costly. There's a lot of technical challenges you need to overcome if you really want to be a big email spammer. And she's laughing in the back. Yeah, it's difficult to spam by email on a large volume. It's not that easy, and to do it on a regular basis. You need a lot of infrastructure to do that. But if you are doing it right by building your tribe and by doing all the right, okay. But the problem is, come on, I'm getting because it's just doing your job. You shouldn't get like extra bonus points for just doing your job right. So the fact is that it's from the bottom. People are just trying to be less bad than the ones who are in front of them. Well, if you compare to real life and with the actual crisis, we're blessed to work on the web, but I feel like people are not taking it seriously. Even today, look at the content, what I call the Google text, even if it's at the semantic source, right? But now you don't even respect the people who are reading that shit. And you're going to rank first for informative keywords, and your content is just crap. There's no other way to it's just food for Google, period. Even in 2020.
It's difficult to pull a conversion off of content that's just written for Google, though, unless you're a publisher, in which case your purpose is writing to get people off of Google because you're selling ad slots. If you're trying to convert on a product or a service, you're not going to convert off of stuff that's just churned out for Google. You're only going to work. That
worked back then.
Yeah, but, and even then, you struggled to convert because in 2004, lots more people were coming online. So you want to make sure that the reason you're doing what you're doing is because it works and sells, not because it's the lazy option, just optimize for this keyword. Like I was saying with the PR agency, they were the SEO agency they were using was optimizing for keywords. The keywords were somewhat relevant, but they weren't converting. So the traffic was going up, but the sales were not going up. And this was a problem for her because she needed clients to stay in business, to keep people employed. So you're not doing anyone any favors to write content that's useless. You need to understand your personas and you need to understand your path to conversion.
Yeah, but how do you explain that? I'm a little small business and I'm going to do a flyer, like a physical paper flyer. I'm going to pay more attention to the copywriting of that flyer than my damn website, even in 2020. Why is that? Is that because people can can hold on the flyer? Is that a physical thing, or is it? I don't get it. I don't understand. Why don't you take the web seriously?
I think people don't understand the power or potential of the web enough. So they can see that when they do a flyer run, they get a lot of calls, they get a lot of customers. They don't understand how when they put a website live, they get a lot of calls and customers because it's not time confined. With a flyer, you give it out, it's time confined. You know, you put the flyer out there, and therefore the responses you got were for the flyer. With the web, it's not the same. So for a small, let's say a small masseur, somebody who does sports massage, they've gotten their certifications, their qualifications, and now they want to do sports massage for, I don't know, people who go to the gym and don't stretch properly. So they don't understand that the web works in the same way as a flyer because the flyer is time constrained and they can see the result, whereas the web just does stuff.
And you got entire industries who don't even understand the internet, not even the web, the internet in general. I'm thinking about the press, the media. they keep on looking at each other and like, how does that thing work? How are we going to make something out of it? They won't. They lose. They're going to die. Because internet, I believe, is a territory in itself. It's not fair for the rest of the world. It's just, we're not going to go back, okay? We're not going to go back. Of course, it's not fair. Of course, that's the theory of evolution. That was Darwin or something like that. So get a grasp, learn how to penetrate this territory called internet and the web, which is a territory within the territory. Because emailing is not the web. A lot of people don't understand that it's a different part of internet, different protocol. But we're getting a little bit too nerdy here. And we were hitting the 2-hour mark. So what else? What else before we... I got to get you back for different topics. I got to get you back. And but maybe one last word on how to become a great SEO, how to become someone in this industry. Like you said, it's hard. Like you said, it's crowded. But like you also said, if you are a little bit special, if you have something to bring to the table, if you know what you're doing, it's still pretty open. I mean, there's room for people who want it.
There's always room for people who want it. People who want and desire and are smart and are savvy and are humble. There's always room for those people. I would recommend reading Everybody Lies by Seth Steven Davidovitz, I think it is. Seth Stevens Davidovitz, he wrote a really good book called Everybody Lies, or How Big Is My Penis? Because apparently that's the most popular search on Google. And I can't imagine why, because Google's not a ruler, gentlemen and ladies. Google is not a ruler. It won't tell you how big your penis is, nor will it tell you if you're pregnant or not. And from working in pharmaceuticals, I can tell you that one of the most popular searches is, am I pregnant? No, Google is not a pregnancy test. So understand what your unique proposition is. And we all, as you said, Laurent, we all have unique propositions. Because we are all unique individuals. And whether it's my red lipstick or your insightful slogans etched on the inside of your earring, there's always going to be something unique about us. Do you have particularly intelligent belly button lint? You never know what could come out of you as a unique brand. Please don't use belly button lint as an example because that's just gross. But there's always something unique out there. And if you want to stand out, just look inside of yourself, understand what's unique, look at the book Everybody Lies, because it's all about our industry. It's about data science, but it's about our industry. Read it again, understand what the underlying messages are in that book, and you will find your uniqueness. And when you combine that with your passion, then even if it's not SEO, you'll do extremely well.
That's it. I think we can leave it at that. Merci, my friend. Merci
De rien.
beaucoup. Au revoir. Goodbye in English. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.